All right, y'all, we are live. It is Saturday, but I said I was going to come on Friday, but sometimes stuff happens. So if you're watching, I don't know where you're watching from, but make sure you go and you hit that like button. I am live. This is Ivy Nicole when She Evolves on Facebook. What is this? The Pink District. Let's have Girl Talk and Miss Nikki. Make sure you like all of those pages, and I want you to shoot over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button. So, like I said, I am back, y'all. Stuff happens, few little mishaps, but we got to get into this conversation because this is a long time coming. Um, I've been low key for a minute, so I got a whole lot to say because a whole lot has happened. So, for those that do not know about She Evolves and who's on the other side of the screen, we kicking it with Katie today. So, let's hypothetically say that nobody know who you are, what you about. Why don't you go in and drop your information? Let us know who you are.
Definitely appreciate it, Miss Ivy. Peace. What up to everybody out there? Again, it's your brother KD tapping in live here with She Evolves. So glad to be here on today. I do a number of things. You all may know me from my writing with our talk program, Brothers and Sisters. Also, Mirror Image Media, the umbrella media apparatus. Definitely shout out to the guys, Brother Renz, Brother Ralph, Brother Perez. Thank you for all that you do, those guys over there, Mirror Image Media. Just so glad to be here again. My role within media is a bit multifaceted, if you will. I also model, amongst other things, but in short, again, for those who don't know me, that is who I am, and I'm just glad to be here. Thank you.
So you said all of that, and you didn't even say why you here. Why did I pick a man to be on She Evolves? And why you here?
Well, definitely, again, appreciate you, Ivy, for inviting me onto the program. As your viewers and listeners may know, this isn't my first time. We have worked together previously on multiple different platforms. In fact, Ivy was a guest on my platform as well on the Brothers and Sisters program, but I was invited here so graciously today to have this conversation about marriage and relationships, a number of things that we spoke on previously that definitely requires much more expansion because it's something that many of us, most of us, can relate to in one form or another. So I'm just looking forward to engaging in this dialogue, and prayerfully we'll find some constructive results for our brothers and our sisters to be able to walk away with, so we can really build ourselves and conduct ourselves better in the relationships that we find ourselves in.
Okay, that's what's up. Because remember, y'all. Now I ain't gonna say we were just talking crap before, because we was spending some real stuff. But this time, I got research to back it up, and I'm ready to get into it. Shout out to Wayne State for this class. I saw this class online saying I can take this class. It's contemporary singlehood and modern relationships. And you know what? I was just intrigued because I was like, what am I going to learn out of a class to talk about contemporary singlehood and modern relationships, right? Because let's be real, right? When you hear relationship talk, it don't matter who it is or what their perspective is, the conversation is always very biased, right? So if a woman is talking, it's automatically that, she's a little higher, she's lifted a little higher than a man. But if a man is, putting out the information, you already know that he might be, low key shading the woman, right? And I don't think it's intentional. It's just how we think as human beings. So here we are in the 21st century, right? So today we're going to actually break down what modern relationships are. So I kind of want to hit on marriage, right? Because I want to get into the conversation of marriage today, not marriage as it was when our grandparents was alive and kicking it, right? Because it's a total different dynamic. And I also want to think about, because, even though I'm a girl's girl, I do believe in holding women accountable for whatever they do and they say, right? Because if we can say that, you as a man need to take accountability, I think we as women need to take accountability as well. So I want to kind of mix it up a little bit and kind of talk about the feminist movement. And I don't know, like I just want to start off right there, right? Let's talk about the feminist movement. Kevin, do you think the feminist movement is possibly keeping us single?
In short, yes,
Okay.
because when you look at the foundational ideology of feminism, it essentially is saying, or it at least alluding to, not needing the opposite sex to operate. So that in itself, again, in short, certainly signifies either prolonged singlehood
Hmm.
or or sexual deviation, if I may dare to say. Because when you have these groups where it's concentrated on one, either one gender, either male or female, and there's a male version of this that we've seen in society also. But yes, in short, I would say it certainly is something that would allude to or lead to singlehood.
Hmm. Yeah. So just to take like a brief um history lesson, right? Let's go down let's go down memory lane for a minute, right? And let's talk about how the feminist movement started, right? Because you got the first wave, you got the second wave of feminists, right? So today, I don't even know what this really is considered today. How feminism is actually displayed, because from what I know and what I understand and the way I perceive the feminist movement to be is we wanted equal rights, right? We wanted to vote. We wanted to be able to get our own bank account, right? We want to be able to work. We want equality, right? But once that stepped in and once all of that took place, okay, now women are bossing up, right? Now we're able to go to school. We're able to get education. We're able to buy homes, right? We don't need permission or a signature from the male counterpart, right? So it's the idea of, do I need a man or do I want one, right? But you also got to think about how you perceive that too, because we could also go into Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where he simply displays that humans need affection and intimacy, right? It's just a human need. It's natural, right? So, what if I could in and get some advice? Okay, this has never happened before. All right, you want to call in and get some advice? Hold on. Okay.
Early.
Right, hold on. I think we can do that. So give me a moment. I'm gonna turn my camera off for just a second. And Kevin, I want you to just kind of bounce off of that for a minute.
Sure. You made some great points to start, especially pertaining to what we know as Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Certainly on the foundational level, or at least the first two levels, is that need of, affection and warmth, if you will, which can obviously pertain to a number of different things. Shelter, a basic form of that warmth, protection from the elements. When you talk about affection, warmth can come from another human being, i.e., what you stated, being in a relationship. That's something that we most likely will expect from our partner, whoever that may be. But it just is something that essentially comes with the territory in a relationship. So when you talk about the difference between need and want, that is certainly something that, in terms of just human nature in general, would definitely be identified as a need. Yes, we may have various times where we may not desire to be around another individual. Maybe we may want to have some time for ourselves, which is also normal. But in terms of a healthy, balanced relationship, that warmth, it definitely goes both ways, whether you're single or in a relationship. It certainly I believe it will fall under needs. You also spoke on the idea of relationships not being the same as it was in the past.
Right.
That's certainly something that often I believe in society today gets sort of misconstrued and misinterpreted between male and female relationships, because there is a sort of expectation that males, men, are protectors, providers. We're supposed to protect and provide in various different ways, whether it's physically, emotionally, financially. So there often is a higher standard, or at least it's perceived in that sort of 1950s type of ideology, or that mindset of the past, where the man just goes to work, he builds the home, and the wife or the female just stays at home and takes care of the home. And quite frankly, it seems unrealistic in today's society. So, as you mentioned before, with the feminist movement historically, it essentially was a instrument or an entity to ensure the equality of females to males, which I also believe there could be some subjectiveness to that, in terms of equality, but I would digress from there.
Okay, and you know what? That does. I just dropped that number on James. If you can see it, it's 313-234-3716. So you just said a whole lot right there, Kevin, which is kind of segue into modern marriage, right? And what does it look like? Because we have to be able to define what marriage is, right?
Sure.
Because you have common law marriage, you got this been my bae for however many years, right? And in some states, it's recognized as common law marriage. Um, you have the cohabitating, pretty much your plain house. The whole cultural reason of getting married, depending on what culture is, marriage is a ceremony, right? But here in the States, we're talking about you could have the fancy pretty wedding all you want, but you ain't walking in nobody's church without the court signing off on it,
Yep.
right?
Sure. For
So
sure.
it's marriage a business in modern
Yes.
society in the United States.
Absolutely. Definitely, as you said, I would second that for sure. By Western standards, marriage indeed is more or less a business. And dare I say, also, even divorce. Divorce alone is, when you really look at it, when you look at the statistics on marriage and divorce rates in the so-called United States, it's really interesting to see the high rates of divorce after marriage and how much money is actually allocated and um, in fact profited off of by divorce lawyers and things of that nature. It's a multi-billion-dollar business when you really look at it. And many of us have not found marriage to be successful in many cases. A number of reasons you can really speak on how that is to be. Personally, I've had the experience of being married for not not very long, but it had been a number of years. It ended in divorce, and I learned a lot from the experience firsthand. So it's not to speak for anyone else, but I can personally speak from my own experience to say that oftentimes it you can definitely identify an imbalance in terms of the Western standards of marriage. In most cases, it's like the female pretty much will decide all the terms and the layout of the marriage ceremony, and the male or bride essentially is just gonna show up. And it's not to say that that's how it should be, but typically when you look at it, there's a lot of examples in mainstream media even where you see that happening, and outside of media as well. But we don't often see positive examples of long-lasting marriages and long-term commitments, like realistic ones, like outside of mainstream media, outside of the movies, outside of the Tyler Perry films and things like that. No shade, but we often see those examples of oftentimes they don't last, and I believe much of it is rooted in the fact that there are power dynamics and ulterior motives simply rooted in financial gain, or just gain in social settings when it comes to marriage. And hopefully I'm making sense, because it's really interesting. And
Yeah.
just quick shouts out to those who may have experienced that, and it may or may not have been successful, but it's possible. I just think we have to really redefine the standards in which we get married, especially as black males and black females, because we often get the short end of the stick. Um, you know, don't bring children into the equation because it gets even more complicated if it doesn't
Right.
work out, and it really can be deconstructive to each individual party as opposed to being constructive. I would also like to say that, um, again, we are not necessarily obliged by Western standards. When it comes to marriage, I've often heard people say that you don't need the paper to become married. You can create a bond with your opposite sex, or in many different ways. Some people even say through sexual intercourse you can become married without making a public ceremony or open ceremony for other people to see. It's a lot of different ways that people look at it in modern society, as you put it, Ivy. But yeah, I believe ultimately that bond, that commitment ultimately should be determined by the two people actually making the commitment, not people on the outside.
Okay, yeah. So you touched on a few great points, right? And I'll just kind of want to backtrack a little bit. You know, we're talking about back in the day and the older day, like back then, right? With grandma now, grandma and granddaddy, and I mean, you know how it is.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
your grandparents from the south.
yeah.
I often wonder if there was not a financial need, would grandma
Mm,
still be there?
mm.
You know,
That's a great
you
point.
know, like because it's always about the money, right? Because as you said, it's the male job to provide, protect, and all of those great things, right? But in today, in modern society, are we still talking about gender roles?
Mm,
Like, where does gender roles play in it, right? Because it's like, okay, women, we can say, oh yeah, I'm a boss. I get my own, I do this or whatever. I make X amount of money, you know, I'm that chick, right? But then it's expected that the man take care of her, right?
yep,
So where is the balance, right?
absolutely.
Where because it sounds like an oxymoron to me. Like you can't have both. It contradicts the other.
For sure, for sure. And not to cut you off, Ivy, but you made excellent points. In terms of equality, when it comes to male and female, is it really a matter of equality when it comes to, let's just say, for example, physical dexterity?
Hmm.
Obviously, there's a difference between male and female, and not being biased because I'm a male, but genetics, natural physical capability shows that males would be more dominant in terms of physical activity or laboring, things of that nature. Even when you look at controversial things like war, those are male dominant activities because males naturally, physiologically, are more adept to that, whereas opposed to females, on the contrary, it's just a difference. It's not saying that females are completely incapable because I mean, in terms of athletes, you have male and female sports, et cetera, et cetera. However, when it comes to those types of things, there are variants. So, um, and in most cases, males will dominate females physically in most cases. So, in terms of equality, that can sort of be subjective. But yeah, socioeconomically, perhaps there are many roles that either male or female can do and be successful and make their own way. It goes without saying. So
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Because again, you speak on social economics, right?
yeah,
And research has shows that pretty much playing house is the thing to do because of the economy, because the economy is the way it is, right? So, people are not getting the good paying jobs anymore. I mean, today you got to have a master's plus, right, to make a decent income, or you got to be a hustler for real. Like you have to
yeah,
be on your grind to be able to be self sufficient in today's society, right? But on the flip side, like I talked about before, women are bosses and we have broke the glass ceiling and we're on our way to the top, right? So it's the attitude of I don't need you, I don't want you, blah, blah, blah. And again, sometimes that attitude and that mentality for women will turn men off and turn them away, right? But it's also like, do I want to play my role? But what is my role?
Mm.
What is my role? Am I supposed to boss up or am I supposed to sit pretty?
Yep.
We don't know, right? But what I do know is that we're talking about learned behavior, right? The
Yes.
the social learning theory. It pretty much states that you learn by simply observing others.
Mm-hmm.
These are gender and relationship scripts that we talk about, and you don't realize how you're impacted by these scripts on a day-to-day basis, right?
Right.
Because the way you grew up is typically how things would go,
Yep.
typically, right? Because you learn by example, or you see the benefit of others when they do certain things, right? So what do you want to do? You want to do that same thing, right? So most people that come from a two-parent household are more likely to get married, right? Because this is what they know, whether the relationship was healthy or unhealthy. Is, I don't want to say all the time, but often, right?
Yeah.
Often you mimic the relationship that you view in your childhood. So if you have
Yep.
an abusive household, you're more likely to either be the abuser
Mm-hmm.
or be the one that's being abused,
Right. Right. And
right?
that's it. Yes.
Mhm.
And that's so on point, Ivy. And you made an excellent point. And like I touched on before, when we really look at mainstream media, from when we were even younger, we were being educated by society and mainstream media to, as you said, how we learned relationships are supposed to be. And that's only one form. But as you also mentioned, which a lot of times we don't take into account, is how we were raised, what examples we saw in our own households.
Mhm.
And for many of us who have lived in single parent households, obviously that's already a strike in terms of knowing what a healthy, balanced relationship should actually look like, especially in terms of marriage. So that's something that you definitely have to take into account. And, in terms of learned behavior, just understanding that behavior can always be changed. It's not
Mhm.
a permanent thing that's set in stone in terms of how we conduct ourselves. So when we understand that, we can make those adjustments. We can take accountability and make those adjustments and not simply rely on what society tells us we should do or use the fact that we didn't have both parents in the household as something to determine how our relationship will be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And you know what? I just kind of want to piggyback off of that a little bit because you do learn,
Mm-hmm.
right? Either way it go, right? If you're a child and you're growing up in an abusive home, right? And you say, I don't like the outcome of this, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna do something different because the behavior that's being presented to you and the impact, what happens after, is something negative. It's not something that you want to deal with, right? So you're gonna
Right.
fall back and be like, mm-mm, I ain't doing this because I
Yep.
know when this person did that, this happened and it wasn't a
Yep.
good thing, right? But
Exactly.
you just brought up media, right? So and this is very interesting how relationships and marriage is displayed in the media, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember growing up where you had, the good shows, right? You got Fresh Prince of Bel Air, which seems to be like on paper, the well balanced family. You have Family Matters. Um,
Yep.
others like just those type of shows that kind of presented what relationship was, but we're talking about the 90s, right? So here we are in 2024.
Yeah.
What do we see? We see Housewives of Atlanta, all the other like housewife shows, right? And it's wretched,
Mhm.
right? So you think like
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So you're thinking that okay, well, you know what? I need to be an Instagram model, right? If I want to get married, I need to do X, Y, and Z because this is all you gotta do is just show up and be pretty and you can bag a rich man.
Oh, I'm so glad you stated that because it speaks about the standards, the societal standards and the standards that we place upon ourselves and the double standards even because as we mentioned before, you know, females, women, they women are more capable of using their physical being, their bodies as a tool to get what they want or need, whereas males aren't able to do that. So when you talk about equality, that's another example of how equality that's not really what that is. And so when you have those types of situations where yeah, a woman may, have that type of leverage, whereas a male doesn't. What happens when you have an average male or an average female looking for a healthy type of relationship dynamic? And, you have to really, really look at, okay, how is this average male or female conducting themselves?
Mhm.
And to what type of expectations do they have in terms of finding a mate or something to that effect? Are they presenting themselves in the best possible way to attract one of those? And they say like high value. They have all these terms and things like that, which are subjective, but it definitely makes the water murky. It creates a lot of gray area in terms of expectations in relationships.
Yeah. You are absolutely right, right? Because where where are we getting the information from, right? Who's
Right.
giving us the foundation of healthy relationships? But in today's society, everything is so clickbait.
Yep.
It's clout chasing. It's I want to be in this type of room. I want the latest bag. All of the above, right?
Yeah.
And if you want to talk about theory, right, we can talk about the social network effect, right? And
Mm,
what this is pretty much is the positive influence of approval from others, right?
yep.
So if I'm dating someone, right, if I say, you know what, I'm really feeling this guy, I like him, but he ain't on that level,
Hmm.
then I'll be like, mm-mm.
Second guessing, you reevaluating
Yeah,
if
yeah,
it's
you're
worthwhile. Yeah.
reevaluating, right?
Yeah.
So, does love even matter anymore, right? Because
Mm,
we actually talked about this in class, just kind of defining what single is. What is singlehood?
mhm.
What does it mean, right? If you're in
Yeah.
a relationship, are you considered single, right? Do we need titles for a
Mm,
commitment?
yeah. Yeah. And that's so interesting. Social media is something else. I and not to give away my age or sound old, but growing up, social media wasn't something that existed. I grew up in a time where cell phones weren't even as widespread or accessible to individuals as they are now. So it just really is a major difference. Social media allows individuals platforms to just be anything that they want to be, even even if it's in fact beyond their true character. There's much fallacy and confusion often that takes place in the social media world where individuals create profiles. They only highlight themselves when they're at their best, or they're flaunting some level of status, or social status that they don't actually live by. So someone who may find their profile intriguing or interesting may come across that and end up being confused in the long run, because you were introduced to a person in one way, while in reality it's something completely different. It's so much. And we've had conversation before on narcissism even, and how that has become highly prevalent in society today. I've heard someone say that social media and its platforms is like a narcissist breeding zone. Like, and that I
Mm,
thought that was really profound. Um, a profound statement, because again, people can perpetrate, they can pretend, and it goes right under it goes right under the radar. It goes unsuspected. So I think that it really takes an individual to be able to um, see or look beyond the superficial, to really understand others, especially understanding themselves, and just being able to accurately vet and see what's real, what's rooted in reality, and what's rooted in fallacy, if you will.
okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say a few things, right? Because you did bring up social media, and I hope James is still here. My bad for not taking your question earlier. But it looked as though, so he said, so he has a girlfriend, right? And it looks like she doesn't want to post him on Facebook or Instagram or anything, says she doesn't like anyone knowing her business, right? Um, he has met her family, and I'm assuming yep, his friends, but won't post him on social media, right? Listen, social media is horrible, right? So if she value the relationship, yeah, she not posting you on social media, right? It's different
Hmm.
if you just a little one thing or sneaky. I mean, type of situation or some type of art
That's
candy or trophy. Yeah, I might
yeah,
post you, right? But if I'm
yeah,
actually taking you serious, then no, we don't do the social media. That's not what grown women do. Not if she
yeah,
really feeling you. And if you met the friends and family, now if you didn't meet the friends and family, then we would have to have a conversation about that. Then I can say,
definitely.
if you need to ask some questions. But again, I
Yeah,
hope you're still here. And I hope that answered your question. You want to take that, Kevin?
yeah, no, that's an interesting perspective, and I've certainly heard of this type of issue before in relationships. It's really, it seems like, well, it certainly is an imbalance, and almost as if the individual who doesn't put their significant other on social media definitely is, needless to say, maybe keeping something under wraps. Maybe they aren't ready to make it known that this is who they're in a relationship with. It's certainly unfair to the person on the other side of the relationship who actually wants to be committed, wants it to be known to others that they are in a relationship. Um, but it just goes to actually reveal perhaps the motives or the attitude of that individual. Maybe they're weighing their options out. They don't want it to be known that they're in a relationship. Unfortunately, some individuals have become you know um, or receive the short end of the stick, if you will, in that exchange, and it's really unfortunate. But I think it reveals much about that individual's character, their motives, their attitude, um, in all of those things. So one would definitely have to take that into consideration if if the person I was dating has a social media and or I have a social media and I'm not putting it out there. Perhaps you want to reevaluate the magnitude of that relationship. Is this something serious? You know, or is it just like you said? If it's just little side, little, side, little something, just a fling or whatever it may be, that should be clearly defined between those two individuals. That's something in terms of expectations that should be clearly defined beforehand, so that way nobody's left in the dark.
Again, so I bring up the whole fact like those titles matter, right? Because we can
Mm,
talk about anything we want to, right? I can say, Kevin, I am your girlfriend today,
hmm
right? But that's not going to stop me from going out with somebody tomorrow,
mm,
right? Just because I have this title over my head, or for marriage, so to speak, if I have this paper signed by a judge, right? It's not going to
hmm
change feelings. It's only going to change expectations in the relationship.
Right,
Because you got to think everybody wants different types of relationships.
right.
I
Yep.
mean, what you got? Your friend with benefits, you got your situationship.
Yes. Yep. And it's so many different titles. Um, and to your question, it's an excellent question. Because there may be, as you mentioned, situationships, or it may be based on two individuals that, hey, they don't want the actual commitment. Maybe they just want the physical intimacy, whatever that entails, and
Hmm.
they're okay with that. That's really what matters and what should be addressed amongst the two individuals. Hopefully they're adults enough to be able to determine that. And yeah, it's so many blurred lines because of ulterior motives and individuals simply wanting. When you really look at it, it's really just individuals. What it boils down to, just individuals looking to get their basic needs met, like we talked about before. It's just unfortunate the ways in which these individuals go about that,
Hmm.
to where now you hurting someone else just to get your uh, immediate or long-term needs met.
Hmm. Are you really hurting someone else though? Or is that person hurting
You can,
themselves by expecting more
yes,
than what was put on the table?
yes, and it works both ways. You make a great point. Are they hurting the other individual or are they hurting themselves? I would say both
No,
in
no,
many
it's the
instances,
other
whether
person hurting themselves, right? But it's just
by
like,
not understanding.
right.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, Kevin, you and I were dating, right?
Yeah.
You tell me flat out, I don't want a relationship. And I continue
Mm-hmm.
to deal with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking that I'm going to be able to change your mind and we're going to fall in love and live happily ever after and live this American dream, right? And when that doesn't happen, I'm calling you every name under the sun of God, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you didn't do what I expected you to do, even though you told me. So are you hurting me? Or am I playing myself? What is it?
Yep.
Because in
Yep. And
relationships, you got to know what it is that you're signing up for.
exactly. Exactly. And it's something that should be understood by both individuals, and of course we can't control how another person may feel, but if we're in an intimate relationship by default, some of our actions and behavior certainly can alter the way our partner may feel. But yeah, it can be self-inflicted wounds if it's something that has been discussed, or maybe it was misinterpreted. Who knows? It can go a number of different ways, but certainly it has to be clearly understood. If if I were to say, well, I didn't want a relationship, but yet and still we are conducting ourselves in ways that it looks like a relationship or is some form of relationship, that has to be clearly defined. Otherwise, someone definitely has the capability of being hurt otherwise.
Yeah. I think that this is one of those conversations that we can talk about forever and ever and ever until our next lifetime.
For
Uh,
sure.
but unfortunately, it is time to wrap it up. It looks like James is back. So let me see. Um, okay, James, email me at info. I'll put it down here. I'll put it down here because we are actually gonna wrap up. You are gonna email me.
Yeah, and hopefully they find some relief, some answers to what it is they're searching for. It definitely gets pretty complex out here in the dating and relationship world. We could definitely go on and on about it. It's always an interesting conversation,
It
but
is.
certainly enlightening, every step of the way.
Yeah, yeah. This was a great show. Thank you so much, Kevin, once again, for just being able to, communicate with me and just like being able to just have this dialogue, this important dialogue about what is happening out in these streets every day.
Yeah,
Because every so many years, relationship dynamics change.
mm, for sure,
You know,
for
this is
sure.
this is
New
because I ain't my
generation.
grandma.
Yeah, yeah. New generation, new
Yeah,
standards, new expectations.
yeah.
Yeah, it
You know.
changes. Yep.
Okay. So, but before we leave, I want you to drop your info and tell us what we could be looking out for from Kevin.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you again, Ivy, for having me on the program, on the show. I greatly appreciate it. Always good chopping it up with you. If anyone out there would like to find my work, you can definitely check out Brothers and Sisters on YouTube under the Mirror Image Media YouTube channel. We got some stuff up there, good stuff. And yeah, feel free to check it out. We got some interviews on there, a number of different things. Also, follow us at Brothers and Sisters on TikTok. Also follow Mirror Image Media on all social media platforms, Instagram, social media, um, Twitter or X, if you will. We're all out there. If you want to contact me individually, you can reach out. I'm on Instagram at K underscore Debonair26. Check out my personal work there, portfolio and whatnot. But yeah, we out here. We out here, and we gonna continue to chop it up, and again, hopefully find some solutions to our relationship woes and improve ourselves individually and collectively. To prayerfully engage in some better relationship experience for once and for all.
Yeah, again, thank you so much, Kevin, for being here. And before we end, I do want to kind of drop this on y'all. From a psychology major perspective, right? I think it's very important to actually understand why relationships happen the way they do, right? Because you get with someone and not understanding what trauma they bring, what type of lifestyle they've had, just to be able to communicate with someone and understand why people do what they do. And I think that's just like the best solution is just to be honest, but you got to be honest with yourself too. You gotta heal those wounds
Yep.
before you're able to do anything. Um,
Hmm.
but nonetheless, what are wounds, right? Because what I consider wounds may not be somebody else's wounds, right? So all of this is subjective at the end of the
Hmm.
day. So
Yep.
again, Kevin, we're gonna have to have another part two, three, four, and all of this is
A
love,
whole
right?
series, a whole series we can do on this for sure,
Yeah,
easily.
yeah, yeah. Let's take our time. Let's get it going. Let's see what's next. All right. So again,
Yeah.
y'all, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you head over to my YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. Is Ivy Nicole, IVYNICHOLE. And if you add that .com, you can find me on all social media platforms. And I'm out. Have a good weekend, y'all.
Peace and love, y'all. Salute. Thank you. I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
All right.